As we studied last week, Revelation 7, we read how the whole chapter has to do with the few and the many, the two groups of people that will enter the kingdom of Yahweh. The few who are sealed with the name of the Father and the Son on the forehead, meaning their minds, and then the many who are from all the tribes and tongues and nations of the world, who come to believe in the Messiah throughout their lives, yet don't know their name, don't accept their name, yet when they see the death of the two witnesses, realize that that was the true doctrine, and therefore are willing to die during the Great Tribulation by not accepting the mark of the beast. That's why they were taken out of the Great Tribulation, as we read on Revelation 7. So the few and the many. The few are those who not only believe in their hearts that the Messiah came and died for their sins and was resurrected by the power of Yahweh, the Almighty, but also confess with their mouths that Yahushua is Hamashiach, the Messiah, is sovereign, the King. So, as Romans 10:10 says, that with the heart one believes unto justification or righteousness, but with the mouth confession is made for salvation. So also we have read already in the book of Revelation that there are two keys, the keys to the key of Sheol and the key of death, that Yahushua was able to get through his sacrifice and resurrection. So the key for Sheol, which is the place where the dead go, is pretty much the key that comes through justification, through the belief in the Messiah's death and resurrection, that gets righteousness, and therefore the person who dies with that belief has the key to Sheol, so that he or she may be able to come out of Sheol and be resurrected and justified, so that he or she may be able to enter the kingdom. But the other key is the key of death, which is the key that the chosen few have in order for them not to experience death, instead be transformed during the harvest in the blink of an eye, as Paul prophesied. So the few are transformed in the blink of an eye during the seventh trumpet. The few are the ones who will accept the doctrine of the two witnesses of Revelation 11. The few will be the ones who will accept not only the doctrine is based on the name of the Father and the Son, so that's why they have the name of the Father and the Son as the seal on their foreheads. And then the other are the many, which will come from all the world. And also, the Yahudim, the chosen few, will also come from different parts of the world. For many are called, but few are chosen. So the true Israel is scattered across the whole world, during many nations, in some nations more than in others, but still is all over the world, as Yahweh prophesied that it would happen because of our sins. So from the whole world, Yahweh will gather the chosen few, and then the many will go through the Great Tribulation, in which they will be pretty much justified through death. And that's when they will wash their garments in the blood of the Lamb. So that was chapter 7. Now we continue with chapter 8. And this chapter has to do with the opening of the seventh seal. So, as I have explained previously, the book of Revelation has a chronological order, but throughout the book there are times in which there are certain chapters that are pretty much parentheses, in which the Almighty tells us what will happen during for instance, to maybe explain it better, in Revelation 6 the seals start to be open. The Lamb, Yahushua HaMashiach, starts to open the seals, and we see the 1 through the 6th seal open. Then we have chapter 7, which is a parenthesis in which we are told who are the few and the many who will be found and harvested, found in the book of life, which is being open at the moment, for the seals are being open, and those who will be gathered and justified through the Great Tribulation, as the harvest of Revelation 14, which is another parenthesis in which we see the harvest and the few of the chapter 7, but already saved or harvested, transformed. So, as we see in chapter 8, the events of the book of Revelation continue, for now we enter into the 7th seal. So the sixth chapter of Revelation ended in the 6th seal. Then comes the 7, is a parenthesis. Yahweh tells us about two groups of people that will be saved and justified respectively. Then comes chapter 8, in which we follow up with the 7th seal. And that is important because it happens throughout the whole book. Then comes chapter 9, which is pretty much following the chronological order of the events, for it is the fifth and sixth trumpet. And then comes chapter 10, in which a malach shows Yahuchanan a new revelation, tells him certain things, and that is a parenthesis before the opening of the 7th trumpet. So just like there was a parenthesis between the 6th and the 7th seal, there is a parenthesis between the 6th and the 7th trumpet. And I repeat, that is for the Almighty to give us more information regarding, in this case, the people that are going to be saved, those who are going to be harvested as the wheat and the grapes of Revelation 14. In Revelation 13, there is a parenthesis that has to do with the two beasts that will manifest, the beast of the sea and the beast of the earth, the world leader and the religious leader, the false prophet, and then the image of the beast. So the book of Revelation is giving us a chronological order, I repeat, but in between certain important chapters, Yahweh gives us more detail regarding certain manifestations, as in the case of the beast, or the manifestation of the two witnesses, Revelation 11, etc. So in this case, we continue, and verse 1 says, when he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. When he opened the 7th seal. So, as I said already, the book of life is the book in which all the names of those who will enter life are found. The Lamb has been opening the book since chapter 6. Now he's opening the last of the 7 seals. So that's why there is silence in heaven, which is huge, because in heaven, pretty much according to what we read in scriptures, there's no silence ever, for all malachim, well, not all, but all worship Yahweh, but they have work to do. So there are certain creatures, the living creatures that surround the throne, the 4 living creatures, the cherubim, they worship the Almighty continually, saying Kadosh, 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 set apart, set apart, set apart. And that has a lot of meanings, which we'll see eventually, or maybe it's already recorded. And we see here that in this exact moment, even those creatures stay quiet. So the entire reality of the heavens was quiet for half an hour. And that has to do, I repeat, with the fact that the book is finally open. The book that nobody could open, nobody was worthy to even look at it. Yet then came the Lamb who became that person who was worthy of opening the book. He finally did, and now creation is waiting to know who are the children of Yahweh. For it is written that the entire creation was subjected to vanity until the moment when the revelation of the children of Yahweh will be given. Second, in Romans 8:20, I'll read from 19. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Yahweh. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. So creation was subjected to futility. That's why there is destruction. That's why there is death. That's why there is something wrong with this reality. Everything is futile, like we see in the book written by Shlomo, the wisest man, obviously, before Messiah, who said that all is vanity. So, but when it comes to this reality, I want to make that clear. So, for this creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Yahweh allowed this reality to be subjected to futility through the action of Adam when he ate of the fruit, because Yahweh knew and therefore had hope of what would come about eventually through human history, for he knew the end from the beginning. So creation, and even its creatures, even humans, or I would say even more humans, since Yahweh gave us intellect, yet not all knowledge. So there are a lot of people who believe they are so wise as to question the Almighty and his creation and the way he does things. So they see everything from, well, for instance, like those who believe in either that there is no creator or that the creator is evil, for the way in which they see creation from their own perspective, which is very short-sighted, to say the least. So there are people who question the Almighty and fight the Almighty for not being humble enough to understand that he is above and his thoughts are above our thoughts, and therefore what he has in mind is not what a person may be able to imagine. Is way above that. So that is why the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope. Because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the exalted liberty of the children of Yahweh. So since the creation will be also delivered from the bondage of corruption, then creation is waiting in expectation for the moment in which the names of the children of Yahweh will be revealed, which is when the seventh seal is opened and the book of life is finally read by the Lamb. So I repeat from verse 19. For the earnest expectation of the creation eagerly waits for the revealing of the sons of Yahweh. For the creation was subjected to futility, not willingly, but because of him who subjected it in hope, because the creation itself also will be delivered from the bondage of corruption into the exalted liberty of the children of Yahweh. So I hope that's clear. So that's one of the main reasons why there is this time of silence. Yahuchanan comes from the earth where there is time. He goes to the heavens in which eternity is experienced. So he calculates the time that he experienced from his perspective as a human and says about half an hour. So this is not exactly as we see in other parts of scriptures, that, for instance, 1,000 years for humans to Yahweh is like a day. As I also explained, that has to do with the second heaven. For in eternity, there is no such thing as time, for time is a creation of the eternal one. So Yahweh, for him, well, he created time, so time is not something that holds him, or something that in which he is, or that he is living or experiencing. So when we compare 1,000 years to one day, that is for in one way to explain that the Almighty has all the time in the world, but in a more, well, I don't know, in a deeper way, has to do with how time is experienced between the third and the first heaven. Obviously, that is the second heaven in which the angels reside. That heaven is a creation, so is subjected to time, but it represents the eternal heaven, so its time is way lower, so that it feels like eternity. So that's why 1,000 years for men is just one day in the second heaven. Second heaven in which there was an angel, or, well, there's still an angel, but he doesn't have the same job anymore. There was an angel that was the representation before humanity of the Almighty Creator. And that is why that relation of 1,000 years to one day, meaning to that reality of the angels, of which one was the representation of the Most High. So in this case, it's not like if we, for instance, since I said that one day is like 1,000 years, then we could say that 1,000 years divided by 24, and then divide that by half and get what half an hour would be. However, what Yahuhanan is telling us is not exactly that. It was a half an hour of heavenly time, which we should interpret as years in our time. It's not exactly that. He's giving his perspective, and also the point made is that there was silence from the cherubim, from the angels that continually worship the Almighty, because creation was expecting eagerly the revelation of the children of Yahweh. Also, since we know that the coming of the Son of Man is also called the hour of the Son of Man, it is interesting that that day of Yahweh, or the day of the Son of Man, the day in which the Son of Man will manifest, represented also as the hour of the Son of Man. Just like one day we separated in 12 hours and 12 hours, day and night, and the last 7 years of Daniel 9, the week of Daniel, the last 7 years will be 3.5 years and 3.5 years of seals and the last plagues, or the bowls of wrath. Then we can see that day of the Son of Man as 12 hours of day, the seals, and then 12 hours night, the bowls of wrath, because during the first half the Son of Righteousness will manifest, that is the prophet like Moshe, one of the two witnesses of Revelation 11. So since the Son of Righteousness will be manifesting during the first half of the last 7, that would be the 12 hours of day. When he dies and resurrects and leaves this earth, the earth will be in darkness, spiritually speaking. So that would be the night. In that sense, like I was saying, we could see that time of the revelation of the Son of Man like an hour. So half an hour would be representing the first half of that manifestation. In this case, the seventh seal is obviously the last. However, the seventh seal is when the 7 trumpets are heard. So there are still a lot of things that must happen during the time left between this moment and the end of the first 3.5 years. But by this moment, the witnesses will have preached, will have testified of Messiah for pretty much half of their time, their half of their ministry. This also, it's important, this first verse and the silence that Yahushua mentions, because of what we're about to read also. But I mean, what we're about to read will confirm this that I am about to say. In the day of Yom Kippur, which is the 10th of the seventh month, the 10th day is Yom Kippur according to Leviticus 23, and that is an important day for many reasons. It's a very important day. In Judaism, it's seen as the day of judgment. Yom Kippur means the day of atonement, the day of atonement. So that is a very important day, and it is interesting that when Yahushua HaMashiach came, he didn't die on that day. He died on Pesach. And that has to do with the fact that Messiah came to fulfill a part. That's why he fulfilled the first 4 feasts. The second manifestation of Yahweh on this earth, who needed the first manifestation in order to be able to fulfill his, whom I called the last. For Yahweh said, I am the first and I am the last. So Yahushua came as the first, now the last must manifest. So just like Messiah Yahushua died on Pesach, now the last must die on Yom Kippur. As I always explain, Yahushua died as the lamb of Pesach, but also died as the male goat that was sacrificed for Yahweh on Yom Kippur. There was another male goat that was sent to the desert for Azazel, which is another Satan for, there are 3 Satans, as I always explain also. Normally in Judaism, they believe in one Satan. In Christianity, they believe in another Satan. And not realize that right there are 2 different Satans. Because if you check the belief of Christianity and the belief of Judaism regarding Satan, you will realize there are different ones. There are different entities. And that will lead you to get a lot more revelation regarding who each congregation is worshiping. But that's for another day. So there is Samael or Belial, whom Judaism sees as Satan. And then there is Halel, Lucifer, whom Christianity sees as Satan. And then there is Azazel, who is found by name in Leviticus 17, yet nobody sees as Satan, which is weird. In Judaism, some believe that Samael is Azazel, but there are several reasons why I don't believe that is true. I believe that Azazel came from Samael, so he would be his child, as in when we read in scriptures the sons of Elohim, different from the sons of Yahweh. Meaning the sons of Yahweh are those who believe in the name of Messiah, as we see in John 1:12, while the sons of Elohim were the angels. So there were children of an entity called also Elohim, for Elohim is a title, not only for Yahweh, also for angels, like the authorities. So going back to this verse, when he opened the 7th seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. In the ritual of Yom Kippur, there was a moment, and well, I didn't even finish what I was saying regarding the other male goat. The male goat for Azazel was represented by Barabbas when Pilate brought Yahushua and Barabbas, and everybody asked for Barabbas to be delivered and for Yahushua to be sacrificed. That was like the high priest throwing lots to know which male goat would be sacrificed for Yahweh and which male goat would be sent to the desert for Azazel. So Yahushua died as the lamb of Pesach and the male goat of Yom Kippur. In Yom Kippur, there were another 2 animals that were brought to be sacrificed. a ram, which represents Eliyahu, the prophet like Eliyahu, that will come as one of the two witnesses. Well, I said prophet like Eliyahu, but it is Eliyahu himself, just coming back again, as we see in Malachi 4, and he would be one of the two witnesses of Revelation 11. That is represented by the ram. The ox was also brought to be sacrificed, and that represents the witness like Moshe, who comes through Ephraim, who was represented by the ox. Something that would happen during that ritual, which is very interesting, is that the ram was sacrificed as an offering in Shalom, meaning right after the pain of sins, they would sacrifice the ram as something extra for Yahweh, as a gift. But the blood of the male goat for Yahweh and the blood of the ox would be mixed together. That's representing the first and the last, to bring the atonement for the sins of the priests and the people, for the atonement of the sins of the few and the many. So that's why Yom Kippur must fulfill at the very end, and that's why the two witnesses must appear as the last two animals that were needed to be sacrificed during Yom Kippur. So I say all of that because this event is something that would happen in the temple when Yom Kippur would happen, and they would have to bring incense into the most set apart place, or as they call it, Holy of Holies. Into the most set apart place, they would need to bring incense, as we are about to see. That is what is happening right now in this chapter, but in the heavens. And when they would perform the incense ritual, everybody would stay quiet. So this event, this silence, shows that this would be happening during Yom Kippur. And since the two witnesses will die during Yom Kippur, there is a connection between this and the death of the two witnesses, but this would be showing, it seems, the timing of the seventh seal that would open during the Yom Kippur, right before the Yom Kippur in which the two witnesses die, meaning 1 year before the two witnesses are killed is when the seventh seal would be opened. So therefore there would be 1 year for the trumpets to sound. Hope that's clear. So when he opened the seventh seal, there was silence in heaven for about half an hour. And I saw the seven angels who stand before Yahweh. And I saw the seven angels who stand before Yahweh, which I already said are the seven angels that are above each of the congregations, the seven congregations mentioned in Revelation 2 and 3. And the names of these seven angels would be ones we see in the book of Enoch. Let me see. In chapter 20 of the book of Enoch, says, and these are the names of the set apart angels who watch. Uriel, one of the set apart angels, who is over the world and over Tartarus. Well, Tartarus is the Greek word for the Abaddon, the worst part of Sheol, the worst part of hell, where certain angels were in prison. Uriel means my light is the mighty one, or the light of the mighty one. Raphael, which means the Almighty heals, or him whom the Almighty heals, or the healer of the Almighty, for that is the angel that Yahweh sends to heal. Raphael, one of the set apart angels who is over the spirits of men. That's why that angel helps heal. And that's why the term or name or title, Yahweh Rapha, as in Yahweh, he heals. Then it says Raguel, one of the set apart angels who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries, who takes vengeance on the world of the luminaries, meaning the stars, and the stars are the heavenly bodies of the angels. So he takes vengeance against the angels that rebel against the Almighty. Also, Raguel means lightning, thunder of the Almighty. They all end in El. El in Hebrew means mighty one. So in this case, the thunder of the mighty one. Then Michael, one of the set apart angels, to wit, he had he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. So we saw Uriel, Raphael, Raguel, and now comes Michael, which is interesting that he comes as fourth, because if there are 7 angels, he would be right in the middle, Michael, as in the menorah, which actually you can see right there, right here. He will be the light of the middle, which is the light that is used to light up the other 6. So the lamp in the middle, the candle in the middle would be used, or is used, to light up the other 6 candles. And that's why Michael will be right in the middle, because he represents the one who is leader and who gives the light of Yahweh to the rest. And that light of Yahweh is Yahushua HaMashiach, obviously. So that's why Michael comes in Daniel 12:1 during the end times for the people of Yahweh, for he is the one that is set over the best part of mankind. So Michael comes in the end times, as we see in Daniel 12:1, and he would be one of the 2 witnesses, the witness like Moshe. So Michael, one of the set apart angels, he that is set over the best part of mankind and over chaos. Sarachael, one of the set apart angels, who is set over the spirits who sin in the spirit. Gabriel, one of the set apart angels, who is over paradise and the serpents and the cherubim. The serpents would be the seraphim, another type of angel. And I say that because then there is the cherubim, so I would think that's what it says right there and was translated as serpents. Gabriel means the warrior of the mighty one, or the strength of the mighty one. There are other translations for it. Remiel, one of the set apart angels, that will be the last, whom Yahweh set over those who rise. And since he is set over those who rise, I would think Remiel, because of the way it's written or transliterated, I would think the way it is written in Hebrew is from the verb that means he rose. So the one who rises for the Almighty, for the Mighty One, or whom the Mighty One made to rise from the dead. Well, I said from the dead because I was thinking of Messiah, but we're talking about the angel, and it's because I was having the idea that these names pretty much are also showing what Messiah would come to do, because he came as the light of Yahweh, Uriel, to heal us from our sins, from our sickness in every way, not only physical but spiritual also. He came as the word of Yahweh, the malach of Yahweh from the heavens, as the thunder and the lightning that is a message from Yahweh for those, well, for Messiah. When he heard a thunder, he heard the voice of Yahweh, while others thought it was an angel, most likely was Reguel, and others thought it was just a thunder. So the Almighty uses angels to speak. The Messiah knew it was the Almighty, but people fell short and thought it was only an angel, while others fell even shorter and were even, well, they were deaf spiritually, and therefore only thought it was thunder. And Michael means he who is like the mighty one, or actually means who is like the mighty one. Is a question, because he said that when Hillel said that he was like the mighty one, so Michael rose up and said, "Who is like the Mighty One?" That is a rhetorical question. None is like the Mighty One, for Yahweh is one. That's it. Yet the Messiah is his image, which Yahweh chose for himself, which is what Lucifer wanted. But Mashiach got, and that's why Lucifer got angry and make sure Yahushua would die and influence the Pharisees to kill the Messiah. And that's how Lucifer ended up losing all his power. So, and well, all his power over those who believe in Messiah, because obviously he's still the God of this world. We can see it. So, Mikael, who is like the Mighty One, that is another term that is connected to the Messiah, Yahushua, because when Philip came to Messiah and asked him to show him the Father, Yahushua said, "If you have seen me, you have seen the Father." Then Sarakael, which I'm not sure what the name would, like how it would be written in Hebrew, as to know the meaning. Let me see if I find it here. Okay, I guess that transliteration is not the best. I see it here as Sariel in Hebrew, which would be the prince of Elohim, for Sar, which is prince or minister. So Sariel would be the fifth. The fifth. Sariel, which would be the prince of Elohim, and since Yahweh is king, then Mashiach came in that sense as prince. Then Gabriel as the strength of Elohim, the man of Elohim, and Messiah Yahushua came to give us the strength, for we can do all things through Messiah who strengthens us. Remiel, which comes from raising up, and like I was saying, that would be the representation. That name of that Malach represents how Messiah would come and be raised from the dead. He whom the Mighty One made to rise. So those will be the 7 names of those 7 Malachim before Yahweh. Let me see if there are questions. Excuse me for just a moment, I'm sorry. I learned today that hour comes from the worship of Horus. Asking what hour it is like asking where is Horus. Sad how much paganism is in our daily lives. Yeah, it's crazy. And well, the funny thing about that is that just like the eye on the $1 bill is called the eye of Horus, and also known as the eye of Lucifer, therefore Lucifer and Horus are related as one and the same with different names. And as we know, the sun of this world represents Lucifer. That's why it falls every afternoon. So it kind of goes with it, because that's why he falls and will fall at the end of history, as we see in Revelation 12, which is what the sun going down represents. Thank you, William. Alright, so I'll continue. There are no more questions. So as I was saying, verse 2, and I saw the 7 Malachim, the 7 angels, who stand before Yahweh, and to them were given 7 trumpets. Then another Malach having a golden censer, came and stood at the altar. So we see there what I was talking about regarding the incense that was brought into the temple during Yom Kippur, at which time everybody had to stay quiet. That's why this is happening at this moment. So we are being told that this is happening on Yom Kippur. So another Malach having a golden censer came and stood at the altar. He was given much incense. That he should offer it with the prayers of all the set apart ones upon the golden altar, which was before the throne. So just like, in a way, like it would happen in the temple. Yet this is happening in the heavens, so in the heavenly temple. And that also shows how what they would do in the physical temple on earth was a representation of something done in the heavens, and even that is a representation of something that would happen or manifest through the plan of Yahweh, through Messiah and the two witnesses, for instance. For as we read, when Yahweh showed Moshe the tabernacle, he showed him a model. So that means that the whole thing was a model of something else, was a representation of something deeper, higher. So then it says, he was given much incense, that he should offer it with the prayers of all the set apart ones upon the golden altar which was before the throne. Here we start to see a connection, which we see later as clear, between the incense and the prayers of the set apart ones. Very sorry, just give me a second. Alright, so then verse 4. And the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the set apart ones ascended before Yahweh from the Malachim's hand, from the Malach's hand. So the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the set apart ones ascended. So just like the smoke of the incense goes up, that represents how the prayers go up from the set apart ones, those that are set apart from the world to follow Yahweh. So the smoke of the incense with the prayers of the set apart ones ascended before Yahweh from the angel's hand. Then the angel took the censer, filled it with the fire from the altar, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. So this is also interesting. It connects with another event of Yom Kippur. If we go to Revelation, to Exodus, not even, Leviticus 16. In Leviticus 16, it says, this is the chapter for the Day of Atonement, Yom Kippur, and the whole chapter, which has to do with Yom Kippur, starts by saying, now Yahweh spoke to Moshe after the death of the two sons of Aaron, when they offered profane fire before Yahweh and died. Here the word profane fire is, well, pretty much added to explain what happened. And I say that because there are several interpretations regarding what they did and why they got what they got. But my point here is that Yahweh starts to speak about the Day of Atonement, and the whole chapter begins with a mention of the death of the two sons of Aaron. They represent the two witnesses who will die on Yom Kippur. So that is a very, I believe, clear hint of the two witnesses dying on Yom Kippur, amongst many other things. But regarding the death of those two, when, let me see for a moment, check here. In Leviticus 10, so from Leviticus 10 to Leviticus 16, in Leviticus 10 we find their death, and then other things are said, and the death is remembered right before the Almighty tells us regarding Yom Kippur. So it's key. Now regarding their death, verse 10 says, then Nadab and Abihu, they too represent the witness like Moshe. Nadab and Abihu represents Eliyahu. The sons of Aaron each took his censer and put fire in it. So this has a connection obviously to what we are reading regarding the seventh trumpet, and even to the death of the two witnesses. For as I said, these two represent the two witnesses, in a positive sense, even though they did something here seen as bad and therefore they were killed. The two witnesses will be seen as evil by the world, by the religion of the world, and therefore they will be killed. They won't be seen as evil by Yahweh, but by the people of the world. They will be killed by the greatest false miracle that the second beast will perform, which is found in Revelation 13, which is when he will bring down fire from heaven to kill the two witnesses, which is a miracle that Eliyahu performed. Now the false prophet will falsify it in order to fool the masses. The two sons of Aaron died by fire that came from the heavens when they brought strange fire to the temple. So since the two witnesses will bring the true doctrine, which is a strange doctrine, to the temples of this world, for in this world the religions of this world have false doctrines, therefore the true doctrine is strange to them. So when the two witnesses bring their fire through their mouths, which is their doctrine, as we see in Revelation 11, then that fire to the world will be strange, and therefore they will perform that false miracle to kill them, just like Nadab and Abihu died by fire coming from the heavens during Yom Kippur. That's why their death is mentioned on Leviticus 16. So, as I said, they die on Yom Kippur. They will die from fire coming from the heavens. That's how it all points to. And we are seeing 1 year before that, the seventh seal is being opened. The whole ritual is happening in the heavens with the incense. And the angel took the incense, filled it with fire from the altar, and threw it to the earth. So the Almighty is angry with the humans who are in rebellion, who are in sin, etc. So that's why the plagues fall on this earth. And that Yom Kippur, the judgment of that day, for that is the day of judgment, the judgment of that day will be plagues, which will begin with that being thrown by the angel from the heavens with fire from the altar. Fire from the heavens will fall to the earth. So we see here in Leviticus 10, each took his censer and put fire in it, put incense on it, and offered profane fire before Yahweh, strange fire before Yahweh, which he had not commanded them. So Yahweh did not tell them, bring me something. They decided to do it. They didn't understand how the tabernacle worked. They thought it was a little bit more of their own volition, like what they would do. I mean, they thought they could just desire to bring something to the Almighty, to the temple, but that was not the case. The temple was so set apart that only when the Almighty would call them and would tell them what to bring and how to do so, that they would be free to do so without being killed, pretty much. So that's why also when a priest was in sin and would enter and touch the Ark of the Covenant, he would die. So the set apartness of the temple would pretty much get rid of any impurity that would get near it. So if a person was full of impurities, if he would dare to enter the temple, he would be destroyed by it. So that's why only one person could enter the most set apart place, and even that person had to have a rope tied to his feet, or well, foot, to be able to walk, so that if he were to die, they would be able to pull him out, for nobody was able to go in. He also had bells so that when he would walk, they would hear him. If they would stop hearing him, they would realize he was no longer alive, so they would pull him from the rope. So in this case, two sons of Aaron, whom in Judaism are said to be tzaddikim, like real righteous children. They were so righteous, they say, that they would have become the successors of Moshe and Aaron. Yet, also because of that righteousness, the smallest sin would be punished with great, um, well, quickness, and also the whole verdict was very strong. One would say they just brought fire. They thought they were giving something good to the Almighty, and they were killed. So there are different opinions regarding this. Some say that they were doing wrong, plainly wrong. Some say they were really righteous, but in this case, it is written also in Judaism that they drank a little bit too much wine, and that led them to do something that they were not supposed to, bring in fire from outside the temple, and they were consumed for it. So they offered strange fire before Yahweh, which he had not commanded them. So fire went out from Yahweh and devoured them, and they died before Yahweh. And Moshe said to Aaron, "This is what Yahweh spoke, saying, by those who come near me I must be regarded as set apart. And therefore all the people, and before all the people I must be exalted." So through this, the Almighty was showing everybody how everybody should respect his presence, his honor, his name, and obviously teaching them a lesson so that everybody would exalt the Almighty by seeing his judgment. So at that moment, even though it was painful for Aaron, obviously, and even for the people, they saw a judgment of the Almighty happening before their eyes, and that, like many other things, was a clear sign of the Almighty with us, the true Creator, who is the living mighty one. So by those who come near me I must be regarded as set apart, and before all the people I must be exalted. This, since is said during this event, which in a way seems like Moshe was trying to calm Aaron by telling him this, by kind of like saying, when the Almighty said that he was prophesying this moment, so this moment and your children were actually part of the fulfillment of a huge prophecy in which the Almighty is being exalted greatly. Therefore, you should not be so sad, for your children were used to exalt the name of Yahweh. So even though that can be taken like that for our own and all purpose intended purpose, in this case, when we see this as the prophecy of the death of the two witnesses, I believe it's even clearer why Moshe said this, because the death of the two witnesses will be the end of the pretty much mercy. The door of mercy will be closed by that moment, and that's why the only way to enter the kingdom will be through dying, by not accepting the mark of the beast, as we see in the book of Revelation. So by the two witnesses being killed for the honor of the name of the Most High and his Son, through the two witnesses being killed, his name will be exalted by the chosen few, and also by the two witnesses being killed, the Almighty will finally be justified to bring the last judgment on this world. So by those who come near me I must be regarded as set apart, and before all the people I must be exalted. Alright, so going back to Revelation 8. Then the Malach took the censer filled with fire from the altar and threw it to the earth, and there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. So when there is the ritual of Yom Kippur in the heavens, but an angel gets the censer with fire from the altar and throws it to the earth, and when he does that, it says there were noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. This also, I'm not going to go through the whole thing. I might do it when we are pretty much at the end of the book of Revelation, or at least during the bowls of wrath. because there is a clear connection between the seals, the trumpets, and the bowls of wrath. The first 4 of each of those sets is separated from the last 3. For instance, the 4 seals, the first 4 seals are 4 riders on horses. Then the last 3 are different completely than the first 4. Then the same happens, not with horses, but with the separation between the first 4 and then the last 3 of the trumpets. They are plagues of a different category, different. For instance, well, when it comes to the trumpets, to make it clear, the first 4 trumpets have to do with things that will come from the sky, from the heavens, that will destroy the earth, as in stars falling to the earth, or meteorites, or however they will call them at that time. But then during the 5th and 6th trumpet, there is an army, 2 different armies that will cause a lot of pain, torture for 5 months. The first army, the second army will kill a 4th of the population of this world. Then the 7th is the harvest of the chosen few and the many. And then something similar happens with the bowls of wrath. The first 4 are separated from the last 3. Not only that, when the 7th seal is open, we are seeing here, noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake happen right before the rest of the plagues that will happen during that seal. The same happens when the 7th trumpet is heard, and when the 7th bowl of wrath is poured. So noises, thunderings, lightnings, and an earthquake. A little extra in the last 2, but we will see it in a later chapter. So verse 6. So the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So we see here, and I think it's clear, that the 7th seal is the 7 trumpets. I have seen many ways in which Christians interpret the book of Revelation and how they give order to the plagues. And I think it's always very confusing how they set it in order. And well, there are several reasons why they do it that way. But anyways, when I believe you read carefully, the book of Revelation is in chronological order, and even in a simple way, if you read carefully, I repeat, and do not follow any preconceptions of what you should read into the book, because if you already have preconceptions because of whatever teachings you have received from different people, then you may come to read it and you have already that set up. But if you read it being open to be taught by the book itself, by obviously by the Spirit through the book, then the Almighty will teach you and lead you to understand, and you will see that at least this part is simple. Verse 1 of chapter 8, he opened the 7th seal. Verse 6 of same chapter, so the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets prepared themselves to sound. So it should be clear that the 7 trumpets, all of them, are the 7th seal, and not that the 7th seal is something else, and after the 7 seals there are 7 trumpets, because a lot of people see it like that, and even worse than that. But here we see that there's 1 seal, 2 seals, 3 seals. By the 7th, 7 trumpets. So that is like we see in scriptures that the end will be like the birth pangs, for they are closer together with time, right? So the more time, the more plagues, or the more pains, and closer together. So that's why when the 7th comes, there are 7 plagues in just that 1 seal. for that would be the end of the last 3.5 years. Also, we can see that what happens here seems to be connected to what happened during the sixth seal. So the sixth seal was when the sun became dark, the moon became like blood, stars fell from heaven, and everything was put in a different place, which pretty much would happen if the magnetic poles switch, and therefore north would be south, south would be north. So therefore every direction, every address would be different now. For north, I repeat, would be the opposite. And since we see that the sun will darken, the moon will turn red, the stars will fall, I mean, it is a catastrophic event, no doubt. Then when we read what happens during the first 4 trumpets, we can see that it seems to be connected to whatever happened during the sixth seal, which some believe will be the coming of planet X or Nibiru. And there are several reasons why I believe might be something different, but even if it's something like what they believe is planet X, I believe it's a bit different than the way they see it because of the way creation is, unlike what they have told us it is. So the angels, the 7 angels who had the 7 trumpets, prepared themselves to sound. The first angel, the first malach, sounded, and hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and 1/3 of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. So we read in Revelation 7 that there were 4 malachim on the 4 corners of the earth that were about to destroy trees, the sea, the earth, and the trees, but they were only given authority to destroy the earth and the sea, for the trees are actually the people who are sealed on their foreheads with the name of the Father and the Son. So in Revelation 7 they were given authority to destroy the earth and the sea, but the malach that appears among them tells them to wait until the chosen few are sealed, so that they don't kill or destroy anybody who is not supposed to die. So we see that the chosen few are represented by the trees. We see here that it says something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. I'm sorry, that was the second or third. The first trumpet sounded, and hail and fire followed. Hail and fire followed. Some believe this could be meteorites because of how they say that they could be ice, stones of ice floating in space, as they say and see it. But hail and fire mingled together like it happened in the plague of Egypt. So we see a connection with the plagues of Egypt. In fact, the 2 witnesses come as Moshe and Aaron to prophesy the 10 plagues. 10 plagues in Egypt. Now there will be still 10 plagues during the first 3.5 years. During the 7 seals and 7 trumpets, one would say there are 14. Yet when you count the bad plagues, the seals and trumpets, when something bad happens on the earth, there are only 10 of them. Because, for instance, the first seal is something positive, the 5th seal is something positive, the 7th seal shouldn't be counted because the 7th seal are the 7 trumpets, and the 7th trumpet is the harvest. So from the 14 we take 4 out, for they are positive, and we have only 10 negative. So during the 3.5 years in which the 2 witnesses testify, they will testify of 10 plagues. Well, they will testify of Messiah, but also they will prophesy 10 plagues, which are what happened during the seals and trumpets. Yet they are not exactly the same as the 10 plagues of Egypt, just in case. They are not exactly the same, but they are connected to each other because of different reasons. And even when they are connected to each other, they are not in the same order as the 10 plagues of Egypt. So we see here one like the ones in Egypt. And hail and fire followed, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth. Blood represents sin, also as all the blood that they have spilled, blood that was innocent. So Yahweh will throw blood on them. Hail and fire, which is like water and fire mingled together, which seems to be impossible, yet in the heavens everything is one. For in Hebrew, Shamaim, which is heavens, is the mix of Esh and Maim. Shamaim. Esh is fire, Maim is waters. So the heavens is a mix of water and fire. In this reality in which Yahweh made duality, fire and water are enemies. Yet water and fire become friends in order to destroy Yahweh's enemies. So that's why here hail and fire came together. The first malach sounded and hail and fire followed. This, since it's the first angel, could be connected to the first seal. The first seal of Revelation, like I said, is something positive. What's interesting is that is the one who teaches the name and, well, the doctrine, the true doctrine, which is based on the name of the Father and the Son, to the chosen few, the names which are the seal that they receive on the foreheads. They who receive that seal are the trees, spiritually speaking. So the last comes throwing fire from his mouth, as we see in Revelation 11, fire from his mouth, from the heavens, like hail and fire, being to some cold like ice, like hail, to some hot like fire, in the sense of his teaching, his demeanor, etc. He will be dressed in red, for he comes as if he was from Edom, like Yaakov dressed as Edom in order to take the blessing from Yitzhak, their father. And he comes like the prodigal son, represented also by the red. So hail and fire follow, mingled with blood, and they were thrown to the earth, and the third of the trees were burned up. So we saw on Revelation 7 that the spirits were not allowed to destroy the trees. So why are the trees being destroyed here? Because these are literal trees. The trees of Revelation 7 are spiritual trees, are people who are sealed with the name of the Father and the Son. That's why they are not allowed, those spirits, to destroy the trees, for they are the children of Yahweh. In this case, this trumpet is talking about literal trees that will be burned up by the hail and fire, which represent what Yahuchanan the Immerser or John the Baptist said. The axe is placed at the root, and any tree that doesn't give fruit will be cut off and thrown to the fire. So here we see that the connection of the first seal, which is the one who to some will be cold, to some will be as fire, for he throws fire from his mouth, which is the teaching, in order to burn those who do not give fruit, the trees who do not have the name of the Father and the Son, and seal those who receive it. So now in the first trumpet, hail, cold, and fire, hot, mingled with blood, the red of Edom, is thrown to the earth, and a third of the trees were burned up. The trees burned up as the people will be because of their rebellion against the true Messiah, the true doctrine. So, and a third of the trees, like the third of the angels that fell with Lucifer and fooled the whole world with different religions, different doctrines within Christianity, which is pretty much a third of the population. And a third of the trees were burned up, and all green grass was burned up. Verse 8. Then the second malach sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. So this could be speaking of a what they would call again meteorite or something like that falling from the heavens, but during the day. That's why it will look huge like a mountain. But during the day, unlike the following trumpet, which seems to be speaking about something similar, but during the night, because of the way that John explains it. But first, let's finish with this. So the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. So a huge star or meteorite will fall, burning in fire during the day somewhere into the sea. And a third of the sea became blood. This connects to the first plague of the 10 in Egypt when the water turned to blood. So that also shows that the two witnesses will be preaching during this time even. The chosen few will be on earth, yet like Israel when they were in Egypt, they were in Goshen. And everything that happened to Egypt didn't happen to those in Goshen. So those who are in Mashiach spiritually are in Goshen. So we must be confident and trust Yahweh and his protection. So, and a third of the trees were burned up, and all the trees. Oh no, I already read that. Then the second angel sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. And a third of the sea became blood. Once again, the third. During the seals, a fourth was destroyed. Let me go to Ephesians. Ephesians 6:12 says, "For we do not wrestle against flesh and blood." So we shouldn't fight with people. We shouldn't war with people. And I mean that in the sense of we shouldn't go to war and kill people because of one's beliefs. And one shouldn't fight with somebody because of your beliefs. Everybody was given free will to do whatever they want. So we must accept what they may want to do, not force them, for Yahweh doesn't force us. So we must be willing to bring those that want to come to the Father to him, but also know that not everybody wants to. So we shouldn't force anybody like some try to, and I know it's done because of love, but we need to give time. We need to pray to the Father for him to reveal himself to them and all of that. So we shouldn't fight with people because of something of the spirit. Yet we also should remember that whatever is making them fight with us, whatever is making them like make fun of us or call us crazy or hate us because of what we believe, whatever it may be, that is happening because they are being influenced by spirits. Because many times it's somebody that supposedly loves you, a family member, something like that. So that shows that there is something spiritual happening that is influencing that person in order to hate you for something that makes no sense really. But that is because our fight is not against flesh and blood. So, for we do not wrestle against flesh and blood, but against principalities, against powers, against the rulers of the darkness of this age, against spiritual hosts of wickedness in the heavenly places. So there are 4 categories of entities with whom we are at war. 4 different entities. Samael fell before man was made. That's why earth was empty and in chaos, void, and well, there are several translations to that, tohu vabohu, which we see in Genesis 1. So Samael fell. That would be one of the four. Then we have three. And as we know, Lucifer falls with a third of the angels. So we have Lucifer falling with a third. And then we have two left. And as I have said, Azazel is a third Satan, which falls with the rest that is left. As we saw in this during the seals of Revelation, on the fourth seal, a fourth of the population is killed through war, hunger, the beast of the earth, etc. So by the fourth seal, a fourth of humanity has been killed. By the sixth seal, by the sixth trumpet, a third of humanity has been killed. So during the seals, a fourth of humanity, then of what is left during the trumpets, a third of humanity. So that means that Yahweh is judging several parts of humanity according to what they have been worshiping. What set of angels, what set of rulers of darkness, spiritual hosts, powers of principalities have they been worshiping? So according to that, they will be judged, and they will die during that time in which a fourth of those who fell with Samael are being judged. A third of those who fell with Lucifer will be judged. That is, the fourth during the seals, the third during the trumpets, and then the last plagues during the last 3.5 years. So that's why we see now in the trumpets that a third of the trees is burned up, a third of the sea turns to blood. Then we're going to see a third of the rivers, a third of the luminaries is darkened. So a third during the trumpets, that is connected to Lucifer, who fell with a third of the angels. Hope that's clear. During the seals, a fourth is judged because of a fourth of the entities created by Elohim at the beginning, which fell before the falling of Lucifer, before the falling of Adam. So going back to Revelation 8, verse 8, then the second Malach sounded, and something like a great mountain burning with fire was thrown into the sea. A mountain represents a kingdom. So this represents that a kingdom is falling from the heavens to the earth. So it is pretty much an announcement that Lucifer and his kingdom will soon fall. It's interesting that this is the second angel sounding the trumpet. Right after, there was an angel who threw fire that was on the incense, on the censer with incense on it. He put fire on it and threw it to the earth on Yom Kippur, which represents what will happen after a year from this moment, in which the two witnesses will be killed by fire that would come from heaven. And after that, days later, Lucifer will fall with a third of the angels from his kingdom. And that is interesting because we just saw here a connection with all of that. Even a great mountain, like a great kingdom, falling from the heavens, burning with fire, was thrown into the sea, and a third of the sea became blood. Like I said, connected to the plague in Egypt, representing the sin of people, the shedding of innocent blood now being judged. And a third of the living creatures in the sea died. And a third of the living creatures in the sea died. The sea represents the nations. In this case, this is literal. Like I already said, the sea as the nations that we see in Revelation 7. Here, this is talking about literal sea. and a third of the living creatures in the sea died, and a third of the ships were destroyed. Then the third malach sounded, and a great star fell from heaven. A star, this seems to point to this moment happening at night. That's why it looks like a star falling. That's why he says it is a star. Yet, during the day, we don't see the stars. They're there, but we cannot see them because of the light of the sun. So we cannot see the stars during the day. So that's why when the previous trumpet sounded, John explained it as a great mountain on fire falling to the sea. In this case, he says a star. It seems to be the same, a similar event. Yet one during the day, the other during the night. Then the third angel sounded, and a great star fell from heaven, confirming what I was saying regarding the great mountain representing the great kingdom of Lucifer. Now a great star representing Lucifer himself. And a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch. Lucifer himself is represented by a torch that will eventually go out, burning like a torch. And I repeat, similar to the great mountain burning with fire in the previous trumpet. So this sounds very similar, but is making reference to a different time, and in this case the malach that was over the kingdom represented by the previous trumpet. And a great star fell from heaven burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is wormwood. Wormwood. This is mentioned in other times in scriptures connected with idolatry. So because of the idolatry of humans, because of humans worshiping Lucifer and his angels, is that all of this would be happening at this time. And that's why the star called wormwood will fall on the rivers and on the springs of water, so that a third of the water will turn to wormwood, which is bitter, poison water. For instance, in Deuteronomy 29:18, so that there may not be among you man or woman or family or tribe whose heart turns away today from Yahweh our Elohim to go and serve the gods of these nations, the Elohim of these nations, and that there may not be among you a root bearing bitterness or wormwood. Wormwood. In Jeremiah 9:15, therefore thus says Yahweh of hosts, the mighty one of Israel, behold, I will feed them, these people, with wormwood. I will feed them, these people, with wormwood, and give them water of gall to drink, as what they were given Messiah when he was dying. As when the people were complaining and murmuring during the Exodus, and they came to a place they were thirsty, and the water that came from the spring was bitter. So they were complaining about it. So Yahweh told Moshe to bring a tree and put it into the water, and the water became sweet, and they were able to drink of it, which represents how Yahushua is the water of life, who died on a tree to turn life sweet from our sins, which make us in our life bitter, to the sweetness of an eternal pure life. Behold, I will feed them, these people, with wormwood, and give them water of gall to drink. Lamentations 3:15, he has filled me with bitterness, he has made me drink wormwood. So, In Jeremiah, if we were to read more, we would see how wormwood is connected to idolatry. That's why Yahweh speaks of wormwood falling on earth during this trumpet. In Jeremiah 23:15, well, we read from the 14. Also, I have seen a horrible thing in the prophets of Jerusalem. They commit adultery and walk in lies. They also strengthen the hands of evildoers. So they commit adultery and walk in lies. They, for instance, Christians believe to have a covenant with the Almighty, yet the name they worship is that of the enemy of the Almighty. Therefore, that is adultery. For they have a covenant with one, they claim, that of the scripture, that of the Elohim of Abraham, Yitzhak, and Jacob. Yet they worship and act according to the commandments of other. So that is adultery. And walk in lies. Yahushua said, I am the way. Yet they walk through a different path, a different doctrine, different name, different Messiah, even different title, for they call him Christ. So they are walking on a lie, for it is not the true Messiah, it is not the truth, as he said, I am the truth. So they commit adultery and walk in lies. They also strengthen the hands of evildoers by giving money to those who teach lies. They are strengthening them to go and teach more lies to more people. They give money to the governments and to a party that they believe that is gonna bring something good for the country, and then they realize that they were just politicians, and as usual they all lie and don't do anything that they said. So they just take advantage of the people. So they ended up strengthening the hands of evildoers, so that no one turns back from his wickedness. All of them are like Sodom to me, and her inhabitants like Gomorrah. So we see here that Yahudah is as Sodom, and Gomorrah, like is being said here, Jerusalem is like Sodom. We see in Revelation that the two witnesses are killed in the place that spiritually is called Sodom. Then going back to 15, says, therefore thus says Yahweh of hosts concerning the prophets, behold, I will feed them with wormwood and make them drink the water of gall. Oh, I already read one similar to this from another verse of Jeremiah. For from the prophets of Jerusalem, from the prophets of Jerusalem, pollution has gone out into all the land. Spiritual pollution came from the prophets, false prophets, of course, like the false prophet that will kill the two witnesses, and like the false prophets that finally were seen as false prophets during this past couple months, when many of them said a lot of things that did not come to fruition regarding the elections in the United States, for instance. So therefore thus says Yahweh of hosts concerning the prophets. I already read that verse. So it continues, and the point is with wormwood, how wormwood is a punishment for the false prophets and those who have believed those words, which led them to walk in lies and commit adultery, which is idolatry. For idolatry is spiritual fornication. So if you have a covenant and you go and fornicate spiritually, that means you are committing adultery. If you don't have a covenant and you go and fornicate spiritually, you are and you commit adultery, you are committing spiritual fornication. So obviously there's a difference between adultery and fornication. Here speaking about those who claim to have a covenant with the Most High. So going back to Revelation 8, and a great star fell from heaven, burning like a torch, and it fell on a third of the rivers and on the springs of water. The name of the star is Wormwood. And a third of the waters became wormwood, and many men died from the water, because it was made bitter. It was made bitter. Then also the fact that the waters are made bitter, connected to what I mentioned regarding the water that in Exodus they were trying to drink and was bitter, so they became bitter against the Most High and against Moshe. We see here that since they have rejected Messiah, the true doctrine, the water of life, then the waters are turning bitter for them. I repeat, for they rejected the water of life, now even the literal water will become bitter, so that they see it. I mean, the manifestation of what they are doing spiritually. Verse 12. Then the fourth malach sounded, and a third of the sun was struck, and a third of the moon, and a third of the stars, so that a third of them were darkened. A third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. A third of the lights in the firmament will darken, because of the third of the malachim that fell with Lucifer, who was given a light. So since he falls, then that light goes out, and that is a third. A third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. So that seems to be saying that instead of 12 hours of day and 12 hours of night, now there would pretty much be, like if we divide a third of the day, that would be 8 hours, 8 hours, and 8 hours. So that would mean that there would be 8 hours of day, 8 hours of night, and 8 hours of a darkness that is darker than what we know as night. We could also see it as obviously 4 hours of the day being darker than they are normally, and 4 hours of the night being a lot darker than what we know as night. Also, since the magnetic poles would switching what north and south is, and all of that I mentioned that could happen, may happen, as it seems on the sixth seal, then that would move also the cycle of the sun and the moon, as it seems to be moving, and it has been for several years. And that's why there's certain parts of the world that used to be colder now are hotter, some parts that used to be hotter now are colder. So that seems to be kind of the case in this verse, obviously to a greater extent. And what I mean is that right now, because of the cycle of the sun and the moon, well, the sun, there are parts of the earth that have a longer night when the sun is on one extreme. Obviously the other extreme is in the dark, but on the other half of the year the sun is on the other extreme. So now on that extreme there is a longer day, longer time of light. Sometimes, depending on the place, doesn't even go out. So in a way, if the sun and the moon move differently, then the light that comes to the earth would be experienced by us in a different way. So that could, I'm not saying that that is exactly what is going to happen, but the movement that would cause the switching of the poles could also lead to a third of the light of the firmament not reaching us. Hope that's clear. Obviously, it could be as simple as Yahweh turning off the light of a third of the stars, and therefore we just don't see that much as we used to. That is the simplest, of course. But if we connect it to the previous plagues, then perhaps it's connected to the movement that will happen in the firmament during the sixth seal, that will cause the first 4 trumpets. Verse 13. I think I read the entire verse 12, just in case I did not. A third of the day did not shine, and likewise the night. So like I said, a third in this case of the day, that would be 4 hours. A third of the night, that would be 4 hours. So 3 a.m., which is the darkest time, will become a third darker, and so on and so forth. Verse 13. And I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, similar to the angel that flied in the midst of the 4 malachim that were in the 4 corners of the earth. I say that just to show how Yahweh, through those things that he says, connects one chapter to the other and an event with the other. And I looked, and I heard a malach flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the remaining blasts of the trumpet of the 3 malachim who are about to sound. Woe, woe, woe. So after the 4th malach, another malach comes in the midst of heaven, which is interesting because the first 4 malachim who sounded the trumpet would be representing the 4 corners of the earth. Then a different malach in the middle of them, in the midst of heaven, shouts this. So like I said, similar to chapter 7, similar to also chapter 4, where the Lamb is in the throne and there are 4 creatures around the throne. And I looked, and I heard an angel flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, woe, woe. So there are 3 woes to the inhabitants of the earth. Each woe is something that will happen that will cause a lot of pain to certain part of humans. And these woes are actually different. Even though they are connected to the 3 last trumpets, they are a bit different than the actual trumpets, or what the trumpets cause. So this would be seen as some extra judgments, kind of. Woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth, because of the remaining blast of the trumpet of the 3 malachim who are about to sound. So we will see it clearly later, but the first woe we see that has to do with the, well, actually, let's since this is where they are introduced, let's just check them out real quick. In Revelation 9:12, it says, One woe is past, behold, still 2 more woes are coming after these things. So that woe is the woe that a part of the world will feel with the 5th trumpet. So the 5th trumpet brings the first woe, because the 5th trumpet will bring something that will cause people to be tortured for 5 months straight without being able to die. Even if they try to kill themselves, they will try to kill themselves, but death will flee from them. So 5 months being tortured by whatever they are injected with, as the poison of a scorpion, as we read in Revelation 9. The woe is that torture, pretty much, in this case. Then the chapter 11, Revelation 11:14, it says, The second woe is past, behold, the third woe is coming quickly. In this case, the second woe happens, as I just said in Revelation 11, after the 2 witnesses are resurrected. Now, the 6th trumpet is an army of 200 million entities that will kill a third of the population of the world. That is the 6th trumpet. During that time, will come the moment when they will kill the two witnesses. 3 days and a half later, the two witnesses will resurrect, will go up to heaven, and there will be an earthquake, as we read in Revelation 11:13. In the same hour when they resurrected, there was a great earthquake, and a tenth of the city fell. In the earthquake, 7,000 people were killed, and the rest were afraid and gave honor to the mighty one of heaven. The second woe is past. Behold, the third woe is coming quickly. So if we want to see the woe as the actual trumpet, then that would mean that the trumpet, the sixth trumpet, would be the army that kills a fourth of humanity, all the way to the moment when 7,000 people are killed during that earthquake. But another way of seeing it is that the trumpet causes a plague that provokes a woe. So that's why the fifth trumpet brought a plague that tortured people for 5 months, and that was a woe. Now the sixth trumpet brings an army that kills a third of the population, but all of that leads to the two witnesses being killed, resurrected, and then 7,000 people died for pretty much being there enjoying the death of the two witnesses. And that will be the second woe, the 7,000 people killed during that earthquake after the resurrection of the two witnesses. Like I said, we could connect it to also the third of the people dying, but Yahweh mentions the second woe right after the death of the 7,000, so that's why I tend to connect it straight with that event, which is a little bit separate from the third of humanity who dies during the sixth seal, right before it. Then in Revelation 12:11, it says, and they overcame him by the blood of the Lamb and the word of their testimony, and they did not love their lives to the death. Therefore rejoice, O heavens, and you who dwell in them. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, for the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. So here scripture is talking about the few and the many who are harvested during the seventh trumpet. The seventh trumpet is the harvest, the transformation. That is what the trumpet is. But that will bring a woe on the earth to the many, to the many who will die during the Great Tribulation, but mainly to those who reject the entire doctrine of the two witnesses in every way. For the devil, Satan, will fall to the earth and fool everyone into accepting him as the Almighty on earth, as Christ, as some will call him. So the enemy will fall to the earth and will go and try to kill the chosen few. Yahweh will not allow that, will save them, transform them, but then he will go and kill the many during 30 days, as prophesied in Hosea 5:7. So that's why it says, therefore rejoice, O heavens, the few who are in heaven, as Revelation 15 shows, singing the song of the Lamb and Moshe. And you who dwell in them, the chosen few and the Malachim. Woe to the inhabitants of the earth and the sea, meaning the many, the earth, and the nations, the sea. For the devil has come down to you having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. He will have 1,290 days. So since to Satan, to Lucifer, he used to experience as one day what a human would experience in 1,000 years. Imagine what he will feel when he has to experience only 1,260 human days left, which to him, and let me just do that for a moment. So 41.6, that would be 41 years and a half would be 1 hour to Satan. And what I'm saying is because Satan is an angel that is in heaven, and in heaven, that's how time goes according to what Yahweh tells us in scriptures. So when he falls to this earth, he will begin to experience time according to human time, according to the human mind. So since 41 years and a half is 1 heavenly hour of the second heaven, but he will only be with that authority for 3.5 years. Just a second. So just a second. It's just that I just did something here that made a mess. That will be pretty much 5 minutes. Yeah, pretty much a little bit less than 5 minutes. So, to the way Lucifer has experienced time throughout creation, to what he will experience when he enters a human body and reveals himself as the Christ people have been waiting for, to him that will be pretty much 4 minutes and a half, 5 minutes what he will have left. So that's nothing. That's why he will come down with such great wrath, having great wrath, because he knows that he has a short time. Now, going back to Revelation 8. And I looked and I heard the Malach flying through the midst of heaven, saying with a loud voice, Woe, which would be the torture of the 5 months. Then the second woe, which would be the 7,000 dying during an earthquake that destroys 1/10 of the city where the 2 witnesses are killed, which would be Jerusalem, also known as Sodom, spiritually speaking. And the third woe, when Satan falls to the earth and kills the many during 30 days and then goes to destroy the rest of the world. So woe, woe, woe to the inhabitants of the earth because of the remaining blast of the trumpet of the 3 angels who are about to sound. So that's how the chapter ends. I'll see you guys next week with Revelation 9.